K-Fit at the moment in Athenry, and obviously K-Fit and slash Conriocht MMA train out of here, and that's kind of the team that I run as a competition coach. We've had postponements obviously this year due to COVID and everything with amateur shows and international amateur competitions and stuff like that, but guys in Cage Legacy are kind of seem determined that we're going to get back on track, and they've organised a collection of shows end of October, November and December. So quite unusually for a club our size, we only have about 15-16 members of an MMA team here. We have 5 people competing on those shows, with 2 of them fighting for titles. So it's a great achievement, especially with Cage Legacy are probably the really only active amateur MMA show or promotion in the Republic. So the 30th of October we have Dara Higgins fighting for a light heavyweight title, and Owen Higgins, Alan Jimney and Paul Stewart. Alan, Owen and Dara are fighting in what's called Elite Amateur, so that's basically look a little bit more professional. They won't have shin guards or rash guards on. The rules are still the same and the gloves are still the same size, but they're fighting in Elite Amateur, which is kind of like I suppose a stepping stone towards the professional ranks in some shape or form. Paul then is fighting in regular amateur, and then I think it's the 13th or 14th of November we have Natalie Malloy fighting for the ladies Irish featherweight title, and that's obviously being for title will be Elite Amateur. So Natalie's going straight into Elite Amateur. She hasn't had any previous regular amateur fights, which is unusual, but you know, it's kind of sometimes getting matchups is difficult, both with not many people, not many ladies training MMA, and you know, at a very high level, or a amateur high level at least. She's ended up slotting straight in for an Irish title, which so 2 Irish title fights and then 3 fights, which for a squad of 15 or 16 is quite a lot.
So this horrible position that you find yourselves in MMA a lot, it's kind of halfway between retaining guard and just getting something away to push to stop him taking your head off. Okay, so you're going to have one knee underneath, okay, and one leg over the top or out the side or wherever you like it, and you're going to start from here. Okay, that's all.
Camp in general is actually going quite well. We've been lucky that we've, like, the country, Dublin at the moment is in a level 3, so I know the gyms in Dublin are struggling to get training going. They're technically prohibited from it, and there's talk here of Galway City going into a level 3 lockdown before the week's end. Today is the 30th of September, so by the 1st or 2nd of October, Galway City might be in a lockdown. We're out here in the county in Athenry, so we couldn't even be considered a suburb really. So it looks like we'll be able to keep our training uninterrupted. The fighters themselves, for the most part, have been able to keep consistent training, and things are going well. There's a good intensity. There's relaxed. We've known about these fights since pretty much, I think, July. So it's a very long lead in. So the only problem we've had is not starting the camp too early, so to speak. So not having them doing lots of intense training. What is a camp in amateur? It's not really a camp. It means that, you know, they're training intensely 4, maybe 5 days a week, with maybe a bit of strength and conditioning doing on their own time. So in July and August, trying to keep them to 2 or 3 intense sessions a week, with 1 or 2 kind of lighter sessions, kind of holding them back a little bit. But since we rounded the corner in September, we've stepped up, and things are sparring and stuff like that, and things are starting to come together nicely now for everyone, thankfully.
Do you get nervous, or does the heart rate go up when you're coaching fighters in the corner?
I don't get nervous. Sometimes I get a bit nervous afterwards when on reflection. But when you're cornering someone, you can't be nervous. You can't show anything. You have to be there to support them, and you have to be kind of steady and consistent towards the people you're cornering. It's not just technical, like, you know, throw a jab or you know go for takedowns. Not that kind of. You need to be also able to exude calmness and stuff like that, and composure. I'm always worried leading up to fights. The day of, not too bad. I have other jobs to focus on. Like, even though it's amateur MMA, I shouldn't say it's just amateur MMA, but it's amateur MMA. It's still a rough physical contact sport, and people can get hurt. So my only job is really, everything else is kind of supplementary to this. My first job is to keep everyone safe, and the way we'll keep everyone safe is that they can go into a fight or a competition or whatever, into a bout, and be able to protect themselves and be competitive. And that's the best way to stay safe. It's when you start people being underprepared and stuff, that's when people tend to get hurt, is they're just not able to keep the pace, or they're not up to a technically high enough level, and that's when you see injuries occur. And it's that at a lower level definitely rides is part of the coach's responsibility for you to be, oh, hang on, you're not training hard enough, or whatever, you're not training long enough, it's not your time to compete or fight. We'd say the 48 hours after a fight, when I'm thinking back and replaying stuff in my head, or maybe watching footage, then I'm kind of like, yes, the heart rate goes up. But on the day, no, thankfully. I didn't have that affliction as a fighter myself, thankfully, and I don't have it as a coach. But just like as a fighter, a few days after the fight, I'd be reflecting, go, what was I doing? What? I come from Athenry, I don't have any combat sports background. When I took this up when I was 21, like, what am I doing inside in the cage with some other madman trying to take my head off? So there's a little bit of that as a coach. Then afterwards, I'm like, I see someone will sidestep a head kick, or they'll parry down a hard punch or something like that, and then the thoughts are going through, what if that had landed? So yeah, I get nervous afterwards watching back and reflecting, all right, but not at the time. At amateur level, and even at elite amateur level, it's just about experience. I suppose when you talk about amateur and being competitive and worrying about wins and losses, I suppose it's like the IMAF Worlds, European Championships, that's when you start to concern yourself with results. But even at that, I think fighter safety is paramount. We've had issues in Ireland, and we've had a tragedy a few years ago as well. I know that was in a professional realm, but it's not. We're first cousins. Amateur MMA and pro MMA, we're first cousins that grew up together. So it's still, amateur MMA is still a dangerous sport. Just don't be fooled by the slightly bigger gloves and the cloth shin guards. That's them shins behind those shin guards will still do damage, and the fists in behind those 8-ounce gloves, and they'll still do damage as well. So and that's not taking into account obviously all the heavy grappling and submission orientated stuff that could cause an injury. So yeah, I would put safety like a country mile ahead of
a record.
Or records in amateur are they're borderline pointless unless you're looking at trying to do well in an IMAF championships or something like that. And that's not even to do with your record, that's to do with getting on a podium or placing well or something like that, getting noticed if you want to maybe have aspirations to fight professionally. But in amateur, no, absolutely not. It's the experience, staying safe, and being competitive, because being competitive and staying safe are closely linked. And and I think that's what a lot of the people here they get from it. One or two definitely have aspirations to turn professional, but for the majority of people who are fighting amateur, it's just be competitive, and when they're being competitive, they're improving, which is not always a nice intrinsic feeling for them to feel. And the fighting itself is nearly secondary. It's the preparation that hooks people. Amateur fights only last for 9 minutes, but it's the weeks leading up to a fight that people get addicted to, I find, more than the actual fight.
Like, the likelihood of him tapping in a second is low. He's going to fight it until he sees the curtains, just like all the rest of you would. So multiply that by 10 in a fight. Multiply it by 20 if you're a professional. Okay? You can't be and you're only going to fight the way you practice. So if you're practicing looking for the perfect, delicate rear naked choke, you're not going to get it in a fight. Because the lad's not going to let you do that. They're going to keep their chin welded and go they're going to keep their hands up here, and they're going to look to get their legs to escape, and then you're because they're out. Right? Get your thumb in, get it in behind their ear, make contact with their jawbone, raise your elbow and drive it in like you're trying to drive it straight to the ground. Okay? And no one has any ill feelings towards it, because they'll be doing it back to you in the training room. Okay? And we're all here to win fights. We're not here to, make friends, or well, we are hopefully, but we're not in here to fuck around.